Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on episodes 48, 49, and 50 of Ace of the Diamond Act 2. And before we start, I am recording this a little bit ahead. I recorded episodes 45 to 47 a few days ago. Freaked out, like you would expect to, because Sawamura's the ace! Finally! It took 3 seasons, but we made it. But I'm recording ahead because this weekend, in literally 2 days, I'm going to be going to my very first Major League Baseball game. I'm really excited. I'm going to be doing a video blog about it. But I had to show you all before I go what I'm going to be wearing to said event because I love Seido. Seido is my jam. They're probably my favorite team, but their jersey is a little hard to replicate. And I was kind of like on a little bit of a time frame crunch. So I decided to go with my second favorite team, which of course is Yakushi. So I have my lovely Yakushi jersey, and I know that there's probably not supposed to be a 0 in it, but I tried to do it without the 0 and it just didn't look right. So I have Todoroki ready to wear. It's a little bit big, but I think it'll be fine for Saturday's game. And I was like, yes. So I do have Todoroki's jersey. I'm gonna wear this to the game and be absolutely ridiculous. And just sit there and sip my soda and be like, yes, I know exactly what's going on. When really, that's not the case. But just want to show you all that. I'm pretty excited. I'm gonna have my notebook. I got a set of binoculars and some notebooks with me so I can watch the pitches. I'm really excited. It'll be great to test what knowledge I've gained through 3 seasons of Ace of the Diamond at an actual Major League game. So there's that. So I just want to show you all that before we started. But yeah, we just, last set of episodes, Sawamura finally became the ace. But you know what? I give Ace of the Diamond props. You know, any other series would have their main character finally gets to the goal that they want, right? And you would think, okay, they're going to be OP now, unstoppable, untouchable. They've reached the highest pinnacle. There's nothing but up from here. And Terajima's like, have you ever played sports before? And it's like, no. Because yeah, it's when you get to that goal that you've worked hard for, now it's about maintaining it. And there's a whole new set of pressure with it. And I do appreciate that Terajima's like, no, this is not going to be easy for Sawamura. It's been hard getting up here, and it's still going to be hard to maintain that position. And now we get to see it from Sawamura's perspective. So Sawamura had a bit of a rocky go in episode 47, and I was like, Terajima, what are you going to do? And so I'm really worried. Sawamura, it's his first game as the ace, and it's like, is it really going to be... I don't remember how Furuya's first game was as the ace. I can't recall. I don't know if he had like fatigue or stamina issues or whatnot. I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look at season 1 to know for sure. But with that being said, I do feel really bad because I'm like, I don't want Sawamura to crumble. I want him to be able, he just got to this position. I don't want him to get knocked down a peg. But at the same time, I don't know what's going to happen, so we'll see. We've got 5 episodes left of this season. Just enough, I think, to finish out the game against our Urasoga. So just enough to finish it out. I think they're obviously going to win because they need to advance on to the next game, which is the one that Furuya is going to pitch. I don't think we're going to see that in this season. I think that it's going to be something that we'll pick up in the manga, obviously, but I think we're going to finish out these games in the next 5 episodes. It's just a matter of what's going to happen afterwards. So, but we'll find out. I'm tired of wasting time. Let's just see what happens, and maybe things will be fine. 3 episodes. What could happen in Ace of the Diamond in 3 episodes, right? What could happen? So we're going to start episodes 48 of Act 2 of Ace of the Diamond here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. I'm not gonna lie, these episodes drained me. These episodes drained me. I said in the last set of videos, it's like there was a mental foreshadowing that Terajima gave. I said in the last set, when Sawamura became the ace, I'm not a happy crier. I don't usually cry when good things happen because I get adrenaline rushes. If something good happens, I get all hyped up and I'm like, oh yeah, let's do this. And like my adrenaline gets going and it's fun, but I don't usually cry. I don't have happy tears. If I'm gonna cry for a show, it's when something really bad is gonna happen. And And then it happens, and it wasn't even really that it was the terrible thing of it. What got me was the parallels and the symbolism and just everything about Sawamura and how much he's grown and how he handled this, how he handled being taken off the mound is what got me. Because it was such a 180 from how he's handled getting taken off the mound before. There were so many moments in these 3 episodes that I wanted to cry, and I think my tear ducts had just dried up at that point because I cried so much in episode 49. Oh, I was just woof, woof. And then the whole thing with the... Remember back when Katioka, when I said he was... when he saw Furuya in himself? Sawamura is Katioka, so, you know, at least as far as being an ace goes, God. And then Miyuki, we'll talk about Miyuki and all of this. And his feelings, and Koshu, and Furuya, and Nori, and Haruichi, and Kuromochi. We'll talk about all of them, but God, we only have 2 episodes left. 2 episodes, I'm going to be starting the manga, so holy cow. Oh. Woof! What a start. Oh my God. So yeah, holy cow. So yeah, let's talk about these episodes. I don't have a lot of notes, honestly, from what I usually take. I know I have a page and a half, but compared to like how a lot of these episodes gone, but I was trying to pay so much attention to these games that my notes are very shorthand, so I'm probably gonna have to elaborate on them as we go. Urasoga, they turn out to be a bunch of cinnamon buns. They turn out to be a bunch of little cinnamon buns, and seeing the similarities between Sakaki and Katioka was really, really cool. Like, you can see the influence that Sakaki has had on Katioka as a coach. And that's really, really cool. Sakaki as a coach is terrifying. He is a shark. But in the inside, he's like a shark on the outside, a teddy bear on the inside, because he gets so... You can see where Katioka gets like Katioka gets all like flustered when his players show how much pride they have in their coach. And when the players at the end of the game have those reactions about the journal readings, we'll talk about all that. You can tell just how much he's like, oh man, you guys are really happy I'm your coach. Okay. Like, you can see the parallels between the 2 of them. And you can see that Katioka takes Sakaki's words to heart. So when Sakaki's like, I'm glad you didn't forget to tell him that. He's like, oh, I almost forgot about your starting pitcher. Glad you didn't forget to tell him that, because I think that made a huge difference for Sawamura, and I think it's going to make a huge difference for Katioka moving forward, right? And we'll talk about it. But Ochiai, I can't fault him in this. Ochiai in these episodes, I can't fault him because he brings out a very good point. I try to be a neutral party in all things, in our discussions, and there's clearly players I like more than others, and I've wanted Sawamura to be the ace from the start, and I'm so happy that we're there because he's literally one of my favorite characters. But I think it is fair. Ochiai does bring up a fair parallel that I was, back when Furuya was having a troublesome match on the heels. It's kind of it's a big parallel, Furuya and Sawamura. Furuya, he pitched so well at the Invitational, and then he gets into a slump, right? And the pressure gets to him, the pressure to succeed Hongo, the pressure to go beyond what he thinks he's capable of, and topple that with the ace pressure, just got Furuya down. And I was all about, in that episode, I was like, you should take Furuya out, should have taken him out sooner, should have taken him out in the 4th inning. And it's 4th inning, and guess what we have to do? We have to take Sawamura out because he went through the same thing. The pressure of being the ace in his first game and him wanting to live up to everyone's expectations, it just got to him. And Sawamura had pitched so well because the pressure had been off. And you can't double standard it. It's like if you call Furuya out, you got to call Sawamura out, even if they're the ace, right? Where there was that discussion in the comments back when Furuya was taking it out. Some people were like, well, he was the ace. And I'm like, but if he's not playing well, and Miyuki brings up a good point in episode 50, like, this is our one chance. There are no second chances. So you got to make these calls. And Seido has in the past been too proud to make the calls that needed to be made. And it cost them, right? It cost them not making those moves. Back in season 1, there were things that should have been done but didn't happen, and it cost them. And there's always that what if scenario, and Katioka's like, we're not doing what if. We've come too far to risk that. If we need to make a move, we're going to make a move, and we work as a team. But what I'm so proud of is how Sawamura handled it, and Sawamura being self-aware, that he was having a bad day. Like, even from earlier on, he's like, something's off. I'm not right today. And it's like, that's the hardest part, is when you're in a competition and you know you're off your game and you're like, get back to it, and he just can't. And Furuya's gone through the same thing. But yeah, there's no second chances. And it was like in the first inning when this was going down. It was like, we gotta struggle through another set of innings for this. And I like that Miyuki, he has faith in Sawamura's stronger pitches, but it's just been an uphill battle from the first inning in this game. We get Kitakata, we get him, that he's not even their ace, he's technically their third pitcher. He's like their Nori equivalent, and he's kind of starting out the game, right? And God, when Sawamura comes off from that first inning, and Furuya just has the water for him, ready to go. Doesn't say anything, because Furuya's not very talkative, doesn't say anything, he's just like, here's the water. Like I love the solidarity between Furuya and Sawamura in these episodes. Like, they are there for each other. They're still rivals, but they're there for each other. They're friends. Furuya calls Sawamura by the first name. We're on first name basis. It's like, yeah, I can't picture. I don't want to ever call Furuya Satoru. It doesn't seem. Furuya is so him. Satoru sounds just weird. Doesn't sound right. But yeah, Furuya just standing there like in solidarity, being like, here you go, like, this is, and he has like the fist bump. Like, Furuya was very active in this game, which is great. And then Yui, cuddly teddy bear Yui, just being there to calm Sawamura down, being like, what you need? And it's a great callback to the start of this season, when we saw Yui taking the notes in the notebook and being like, oh, that's Sawamura, I want to help him. And now he's getting a chance to, right? Oh, it was great. And Sawamura saying he's self-aware. He's like, I feel off. Something's not right. And all the markers were there. Like, Sawamura wasn't eating well. He wasn't sleeping well. He was too hyped up. He was pitching too much. The nerves got to him. He just psyched himself out for that first game, and it just affected him poorly. And Sawamura knows it, and it's so sad. And Kuramochi and the other team members, like, they're all standing behind Sawamura, like Kuramochi saying, you know, what will it take to calm you down, Sawamura? How many runs can we score to make you feel more relaxed? And it's like, Kuramochi just wants to help his little brother and calm him down. And then Nabe even, like, went to take measures to prep for this game too, like taking a camera to the bullpen. That was awesome. Our sniper Nabe covering all the bases, literally. And then Haruichi being like, we got your back, Sawamura. I loved Nori in this set of episodes. Nori was like constantly with Sawamura being like, it's going to be okay. Nori was like such a calming presence throughout this. And it was like, I absolutely loved it. And I love that they walked Miyuki. I was like, you, whenever they walk a player intentionally, it's like, you knew what you were doing. It's like later on we see that one team walking Raichi. It's like, you know what's up. You knew what was going to happen. I just love that. So we find out Kita's specialty is the curveball. And Zono and Tojo getting out, that was rough. Like, both of them trying so hard and it just not working. And it's still 1-2. And so I had this question, like, I wondered if Sakaki was a catcher, because Ochiai, we had the conversation in previous episodes about Ochiai being a catcher formerly, and him and Katioka working kind of like as a battery as coaches. I thought, watching this episode 48, that maybe Sakaki was a catcher, because the actions he takes, like him and Miyuki being like on the same wavelength, and him trying to outsmart Miyuki and trick him and everything, I was like, you're acting like a catcher. Like, all your decision making and everything, it sounds like something a catcher would do. And it would kind of make sense if him and Katioka were a catcher-pitcher duo. They formed a battery back when they both worked at Seido. So I wondered about that. It just, his tactics and his attitude kind of made me think that he might have been a catcher when he played. But I don't know if they'll ever, maybe there's a guidebook or Terajima tells us that. But yeah, Furuya and Katioka both giving that's what I think hit Sawamura the hardest, is that you have Furuya giving him the fist bump, like, you got this. You have Katioka being like, you got this. Like, they both had their faith in Sawamura. And Sawamura just doesn't think, he's like, I don't know why, but he's like, I'm just off today. And he's like, I want to do right. Because that's so hard. Like, when your team has their faith put in you, and when they're telling you to do well, and you're just not meeting it, and you don't know why. That was so hard to watch. It was so hard. I was like, ugh. It was just so emotional, right? And then we cut to 1 week prior, and we have the retirement practice. And that started to get me emotional from the start. Like all the fact that Katioka lets the retirees, the ones that aren't going to play in the tournament, have one more practice game where they really get to go all out and practice to their heart's content. That was really emotional. And Sawamura talking about, he's like, I want to carry, because he's got all this pressure. He's like, it's the third year's last game. It's not only Miyuki and Nori in their last season and their last tournament, but now you have all the emotions from the retirees that you've put on his back. So he's trying to shoulder everything. And I'm glad Miyuki talked to him. We'll talk about that in episode 49. But I like when Sawamura was just trying to shoulder all of it, and you just can't. And Miyuki tells him that. He's like, the ace doesn't carry the team alone, right? And we'll talk about that. But Sawamura was just trying to carry all of that burden and stress, and it just broke him down. And it's so sad because it's his first game. My only consolation is I'm like, we can only go up from here. We've had the worst first game for an ace. You played 4 innings and got subbed out. We can only go up from here. We've hit rock bottom from the start. Terajima was like, well, you've hit rock bottom. Now what? Now you got to claw your way back to the top, right? Which it's funny to say that when Sawamura is the ace, but Tamba went through the same struggles. Furuya's gone through the same thing. It's just that path they got to walk, right? And so I like that Yui and Furuya are trying to keep him calm. Like Yui has him do the breathing exercises, which is really great. But then he does that slide to first, and that was like everybody getting kind of freaked out. I think that's the point where the stick snapped. It was like, because yeah, like somebody in the crowd said, like he could have got injured like sliding to first. They're like, why'd you do something that reckless? Like calm down. Like it's not. This is only the second or third inning of the game, right? He was just too worked up, and then they bring in Higashiyama for the ace in the third inning. Which, for the record, Higashiyama looks like, I know I said it in the reaction, looks like if Mukai and Inui had a baby. Like he had Mukai's hair and kind of eyes, but he had Inui's long face. It's kind of interesting. And Nabe realizes that the info he had on the ace is not helpful, that they suspect that Sakaki was thinking they were going to videotape the games, and so he set it up. He's like, oh, just do these pitches, but that's not really what we're going to do. Because Sakaki's a savage, right? Just a shark. And so it was just a setup. And what I also liked about this was that we get to see Katioka, the relay pitcher strategy that we see Sakaki using has been adapted by Katioka. So we get to see two coaches who Katioka has learned from Sakaki, and a lot of their same techniques, their same practices, their same rituals it's been passed down from Sakaki to Katioka, which makes Yugasora dangerous because they know all of Seido's moves, because Sakaki's like, yeah, I taught Katioka everything he knows, so of course I know what they're going to do. So it makes them dangerous. But, and it was a big old just bundle of things. You have Furuya and Katioka trying to cheer Sawamura on. You have Miyuki putting his hand on Sawamura's back, being like, it's going to be okay. I've noticed in this series that whenever Miyuki starts to get physical with Katioka, not with Katioka, whenever Miyuki starts to get physical with Sawamura, it usually means that he's worried about him. Like whenever he goes up and does like the glove on his chest, or he puts his hand on his back, like that means Miyuki is worried about Sawamura's condition. And I'm like, it makes me nervous, right? And so then Nori comes in the fourth inning to take over. And at the end of episode 48, of course they called it Get Back. I'm like, Terajima, you cruel man. Get back. Like, we're not, like, don't get on your high horse just because you're the ace yet, right? Even though I never think Sawamura was on a high horse because he was the ace. He literally has had the most humble ace acceptance out of the entire series. I don't think he's ever was on a higher horse because of his ace status, but quite the opposite. Sawamura is quite self-deprecating, surprisingly enough, because he's a sunshine character. But I will say this, I got a little miffed at Sakaki because he was talking down Nori. He's like, oh, it's just the relief pitcher. And I was like, you leave Nori alone. I was feeling like the manager. I was like, you leave Kawakami alone. Kawakami is amazing. I felt like defending him because I was like, yeah, Nori is the third year pitcher and he is strong. And Nori is good. It was kind of cool seeing Nori go back to his roots in these episodes, that Nori got to go back to his roots. And kind of, he started out this series as being the relief pitcher. And he was known for like coming in whenever the ace was needed to step in. And it's cool to see him come back full circle and fill in for Sawamura like he's done for Tamba before. And it's a position and a role that Nori is used to and he's familiar with. And he was able to just nail it. I loved it. But yeah, so episode 49 is called Seido Goes All Out. Romania cries all out. But yeah, that swap in, oh my God, I didn't put a lot of notes there because I was just a mess. Because yeah, it was just, what got me was Sawamura giving his energy to Nori like what Nori did for him. It came full circle and I was like, oh my God, I can't. Like just it's so hard to watch, but it was the right move to do, but it's still so hard to watch because you want Sawamura to do well in his first game, and it just wasn't there, right? And Furuya was like he was like okay with it first, just like, here you go. And then I liked, he's like, well, you clapped sooner than expected. And that seems like a mean thing to say, but I was like, okay, Furuya's being normal and sarcastic to try to get Sawamura back on track. And what got me too, what like made it even worse, crying wise, was that Sawamura gets back, and we saw a little bit of the bags. I was like, get back. We didn't see the shadows under his eyes, but we saw a little bit of the bags. I was like, kind of like Nori was when Sawamura took his place. But what got me was just the way Sawamura handled it. Because, we've had before where Sawamura didn't want to give the ball away, where he was like yelling to Kakatioka, be like, don't take me out, like I can do this. But Sawamura was self-aware and knew he needed to come out, and he was so frustrated in himself because he's like, I know I'm not doing good and I need to come out. But he's like, I don't want to because this is my first game as the ace. My teammates are counting on me. I don't want to do it. But then the other thing was how he handled himself afterwards, because he is the ace. And just because you get subbed out does not mean when you're the ace, you don't get to go self-wallow and self-pity. Sawamura, like him turning around and Yui's like, hey, I'll help you cool down. And he's like, wait till this inning's over, because he wanted to make sure Nori like transitioned well, and him cheering them on and just like still yelling at them. And I think that's what got Miyuki, honestly. I think that's what made Miyuki feel so bad, is he's like, damn it. He's like, I couldn't do anything to help him. And he's still acting like this. He's still acting like the ace and still has this sunshine personality and keeping the team motivated because he's the ace. That's his job. And making the team stronger when he knows that he's done bad. Miyuki's like, damn it. What could I have done? What more could I have done? We'll talk about that. Yeah, Miyuki wishes he could have done more. And I've noticed when Miyuki gets self-critical, he gets quiet. Sawamura can get loud, but Miyuki, when he feels down, he gets quiet and he gets stern. Like Miyuki, when he feels disappointed in himself, he gets very stern. Like he just doesn't know what to do, right? And so it becomes clear that Sakaki wants them all to overthink. Sakaki wants to play the mind games. He wants the other team to overthink things and to collapse. And that's kind of what Sawamura did. He was trying to do too much, and it was overthinking it. And that's what Sakaki wants. And so it's interesting, the strategy that he has. And then Katioka, we'll talk about him versus Katioka later on. But Sawamura tries to keep in good spirits, and I freaking love him for it. I'll be honest, I was really, really nervous when Sawamura went up to Miyuki, because Miyuki, at first, if you watch that scene again, Miyuki's smiling and he's like, yeah. But we know that Miyuki can put on a front with his smile sometimes, and then Miyuki scores the home run, right? Miyuki was pissed. When Miyuki scored that home run, he was pissed. I'm going to go back. I skipped a few lines here. Miyuki was so mad because he was like, our ace had to get taken out. He wasn't happy about it. He was mad at himself because he thinks he could have done more. And Miyuki was just pissed. And when he hit that home run, there was no smile on his face. He just ran those bases like I'm frustrated. And so we also see that Sakaki, he does the journals like Katioka. He makes all the players read the journals and keep their own. So a lot of the same rituals and practices that Seido does through Katioka were learned from Sakaki, which is interesting. But yeah, I was a little worried because I noticed that Miyuki was pissed when he was running the bases after that home run. And when Sawamura's, keeping in good spirits, he's keeping the ace energy up, and he's like, hey, good job, Cap. That's the Cap cannon. Thanks for getting that home run. And I feel like part of me thinks maybe Miyuki felt like Sawamura was a little self-deprecating there. Like he was cheering Miyuki on, but he was kind of like, you did much better than I could have done, you know, like one of those things. And so when he looks over to Sawamura, his face is very tense and his face is very stern. And I was like, is Miyuki about to like yell at Sawamura or what? And he says, the ace doesn't carry the team alone. And that reminded me so much of Kunitomo's speech to Mei, where he's like, you're not the one carrying this team alone either. Like, what are you going to do? And I give Sawamura so much props because he's like, oh, and Miyuki does the fist bump with him and tells him that. And Sawamura's like, oh, okay. I feel like Sawamura handles that implosion a lot better than Mei, but they didn't lose the game. I feel like if they had lost the game after Sawamura's 4 innings, if they had ended up losing still, if Nori hadn't come through, I feel like it would have been a totally different story, right? I feel like Sawamura would have been like devastated if they'd lost. And he would have probably blamed himself. And luckily, Nori is reliable, and that was not going to happen. But I feel like the way that Miyuki addressed Sawamura in that moment, it reminded me a lot of Kunitomo. Just him being like, hey, even though you're the ace now, you're not the only one leading the team. We're all here for you. And Sawamura knows that, but it's one of those things where I feel like he doesn't exactly say it, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in these episodes. But Miyuki's interesting in these episodes, to say the least. Like, how he handles his own disappointment in himself is fascinating. We'll talk more about that. So Seido took the lead though, 4-2. I was like, thank God. And then in the 6th inning, they took 5-2 lead. Nori's been doing great. Osu, the number 12 guy, comes in for Yugasora, and he does forkballs and fastballs. I love the Nori and Sawamura talk where they're in between innings. Sawamura's like, hey, watch their batters do this and this, and them talking. Like, seeing Sawamura stay in good spirits was so powerful and just shows that he is, I think it proves he's meant to be the ace, because Furuya, I love Furuya to pieces, and he is a strong solidarity for his team. And Furuya, oftentimes, his actions speak louder than his words, which is kind of Furuya's specialty. But I feel like when Furuya got in a slump before, he just kind of like, he's not talkative to begin with. So, like, Sawamura can rely and fall back on his leadership skills and the fact that he can still communicate to his team and build them up that way, even if he's not on the mound. Furuya, when he's not on the mound, he's naturally quiet and introverted. So Furuya's not going to sit there on the sidelines and be like, go Nori, go Sawamura, you can do it. He's going to be there quietly, like, supporting. But I feel like Sawamura in the ace position, it works better because he can project all that energy and optimism even when he's not on the mound, and the team still benefits from it. So it's interesting. But yeah, Koshu watching Sawamura. I'm glad that was a great setup for episode 50. I was like, why is he watching Sawamura? I was like, are you going to say something? I was hoping he was going to say something. I'm glad that he finally did. And then Sawamura, God, when he said, I wish that I could have a do-over of this game. That was hard. Because it's like, yeah, anybody in that position would want to have a do-over. And it's like, what do we do? What do we do? And so then, yeah, the team wanting to get better. The team wants to get better with Sakaki. I love that towards the end, there was 8-2, and Seido had like turned things around and we're doing really well. And Sakaki was like, come on, you guys can keep doing this. And they're like, yeah, we're probably going to lose. But you know what? We want to get better. We should have paid more attention to your journals, Coach Sakaki. And we should have practiced more. And now I want to get better. And they all get motivated in like this final hour that they have a feeling they're going to lose, but they want to get motivated and do better once the game's over. And it kind of touches Sakaki. And he's like, well, you guys. He's like, let's handle this one pitch at a time. Come on, we can do this. But Masashi's home run does it. God, I love that Masashi gets to close out the game with that home run. I love it. And it ends up being 10-2 in the 7th inning. So Nori only pitched 3 innings. Sawamura pitched over half the game. It's fine. But I like that by the end of the game, yeah, there's some people that rag on Sawamura and they're like, he had a really rocky start. And it's like, yes, we know. Shut up. But then there are others that were like, well, he'll be fine. And it's like, okay, good. Keep the faith with our boy Sawamura. But I love that the reporter said, how will Sawamura take this experience to help him grow? I was like, yes, that's exactly right. Like, what is Sawamura going to learn from this experience. Because you've hit rock bottom. You've hit the worst place a starting ace can go. Now we can only go up from here. And I love that the Kataoka and Sakaki got to talk at the end. And he's like, you've built a good team, Teshin. And then there's that big tease for episode 50. But it was worth it. It was worth it. Because we had Seido Goes All Out, episode 49, leading us into Fire Age. Mm-hmm. The Fire Age for Seido. I'm like, hell yeah. So, So we get the other team, Hachiya Ogi, who's the team that they're going to face with Furuya pitching. And I'm surprised we actually got that game started. I'm surprised. We've only got 2 episodes left, so I'm thinking, are we going to end the season in the middle of the game? Really? I'm like, are we really going to end season 3 in the middle of a game? Are they really going to round out this game? I could see it, I guess, going one of 2 ways. I don't think they're going to lose. I don't think that's going to happen. There's too much foreshadowing in episode 50 that I'm like, there's too much foreshadowing. There's too much foreshadowing, but we'll talk about it. I don't think they're going to lose the game, but either one of 2 things is going to happen. Either Furuya's pitching this game, and I don't know what inning they're in by the end of it. I can't recall if we're in the first inning. We're right at the start. But either we're going to end the game in 2 episodes, which is not unheard of. We have done that in Ace of the Diamond before. Not every game is a 13-episode jaunt. There have been episodes that have had like a 1-episode game, and that was it. So it's not unheard of. So either we're going to beat Hachiya Ogi in 2 episodes, and then we're going to end the season preparing for round 3, or they're going to end the season in the middle of the game. I'm like, are they going to end it on a damn cliffhanger? The good thing is I'm going to finish the volume next set of episodes, because apparently season 3 ends mid-volume. It ends like at chapter 169, which is in the middle of volume 19 of Act 2. So I'm going to be able to read and finish volume 19 in the next set of episodes, which is great. But I'm very curious, right? I'm very curious. But so we have Hachiya Ogi playing them, and we have the whole thing with them having the top fielders in Tokyo, some of the top fielders in Tokyo. And I love the conversation between Haruichi and Kuromochi, that Haruichi feels he's kind of like, oh man, we're facing the top fielders in the nation. And Kuromochi's like, well, that's just because they haven't heard of you, Haruichi. They haven't seen you in action against them. After we play them, you're going to be the top fielder. He's like, you'll be the top second baseman, and I'll be the top shortstop in Kanto. And it's like, I love that. I love that Kuromochi cheering Haruichi up. It just makes me feel so sad in a way, because it's like we've spent these last 3 seasons developing these relationships between Kuromochi and Haruichi, and Miyuki and Sawamura, and Miyuki and Furuya, and like Zono and Kanemaru with Tojo and them. And it's like, after this tournament, like, they're gonna move on. And I'm like, who's Haruichi gonna work with? I feel like Seido is getting set up to be the next person to replace Kuromochi. I feel like Seido is being set up with that, because he has kind of like similar qualities to him. He even does, we'll talk about the laugh thing, he even does that later. But I feel like he's being set up to take Kuromochi's spot. And it would be a fun little twist when Ryo left. Kuromochi had to be a mentor for Haruichi, taking Ryo's position. And now if Seido steps up to take Kuromochi's position, Haruichi would be a mentor to him. So it would all come full circle. I feel like that's what would happen. I feel like it would all come full circle, which is kind of cool. But yeah, at the very start of the episode, we see Sawamura and Koshu hanging out at the end of the game. They're off at the bullpen, and he tells the 3rd years for Yugasora, he's like, thank you for playing us, and like all that. And then we see how Kataoka and Sakaki's coaching styles are very similar, and there's that stupid tease again. But my favorite part, I think, of this entire set of episodes, one of my favorite parts, was the counseling session, as Tojo calls it, but the counseling session between Koshu and Sawamura. I love the chemistry between Koshu and Sawamura. I absolutely love it. Here's where I'm torn at, y'all. Here's where I'm torn at, and it's kind of the weirdest thing. It's like there's 3 pairs in this series, and it's the weirdest thing because you have obviously there's a lot of people that ship Miyuki and Sawamura, and there's a lot of people that ship Koshu and Sawamura, and there's a weird chemistry between Miyuki and Furuya, a weird chemistry, and there's times where I feel like the series is shipping Furuya and Miyuki, but then there's nothing romantic. I don't get any like romantic vibe between them at all. I just feel like how I feel like about these three ships is you have Furuya and Miyuki relate to each other a lot because they're both kind of private, introverted people. And I feel like Miyuki has great chemistry with Furuya because he sees Furuya as very similar to himself. He's like, oh, you're very similar to me. How you handle things is very similar to myself. I can totally relate. So I feel like Miyuki feels comfortable around Furuya because there's that similarity there, right? And so Miyuki feels like he can read Furuya pretty well. He can gel with him well. When they had like the scenes in the rooms with all the other third years and underclassmen, Miyuki would like look over to Furuya and be like, I get where you're coming from. Also, Furuya and Miyuki were like the first battery of the two, while Sawamura was off working with Chris. You had Furuya and Miyuki together, so they've developed this natural battery with one another. There are times where I feel like Terajima really has us think that Furuya and Miyuki are the better battery because they get along so well. But then you have Miyuki and Sawamura. And Sawamura and Miyuki are very opposite of each other. It's kind of like opposites attract. They balance each other out, right? You have Miyuki, who's very introverted and more stern and kind of closed off, but has great leadership skills. And you have Sawamura, who also has good leadership skills, but is loud and optimistic and vocal and communicative. And so you have kind of opposites attracting in that scenario. And I feel like Miyuki, it's the weirdest thing. I feel like Miyuki, him and Sawamura, I ship them because I feel like Miyuki he's challenged by Sawamura a lot. He finds a challenge in Sawamura, and Miyuki loves a challenge. And so he's like, he feels emboldened by it. He's like, yeah. But I feel like because of that, Miyuki, he puts Sawamura up to a higher standard, I feel like. And so when Sawamura had the struggles in the last episodes, he felt like he was getting hard on himself, right? He was getting hard on himself. Like when Furuya was stumbling back a few episodes ago, Miyuki's like, well, I put my trust in Furuya and it just didn't pan out. But with this, he's like, I'm disappointed in myself because I'm supposed to be this great catcher that can make any pitcher shine. And I couldn't do that with Sawamura, and I feel disappointed about it. So Miyuki puts himself onto a higher standard because of Sawamura and feels like he has to constantly live up to that to make Sawamura shine. And when it doesn't work out, he's hard on himself. So I feel like it's just like you two, now kiss, one of those scenarios. Like, just admit you like each other. Sawamura is still wanting that acknowledgement from Miyuki, even though he's gotten it like 5 times already. And Miyuki just holds himself up to this high standard and doesn't quite understand Sawamura, but he wants to understand Sawamura. So it's a very complicated ship, but I can see why everybody loves it. And then you have Koshu and Sawamura. And for me, Koshu is kind of like an underclassman Chris. He has lots of Chris vibes, right? He has lots of Miyuki vibes, but he also has he's like if Chris and Miyuki had a baby, is Koshu. Because Koshu has like that drive like Miyuki does, but he also can be self-critical of himself like Chris, but he also has that communicative ability like Chris. Like he has that same quality to him. And I love that dynamic with Sawamura because like Furuya and Miyuki are similar, so they work well together. Sawamura and Koshu are similar, and so they work well together. Like Sawamura and Koshu are both very talkative characters. Koshu doesn't want to think it, but Koshu, he tries not to wear his heart on his sleeve, and he seems like he's private, but he exudes that empathy. And like Seido says, he's like, you really are communicative, and you kind of wear your emotions on your sleeve sometimes. And Koshu's like, no, I don't, but he does. So I feel like Koshu and Sawamura both wear their emotions on their sleeves, their heart on their sleeves, whether they want to admit it or not. But that's what makes them work so well together. And then you have Miyuki and Sawamura, who are opposites, and they kind of attract in that regard too. So I'm like, I ship all 3, damn it. It's just like a polycule. It's like a polycule of baseball shipping, really. I ship all 3 of them. I ship Miyuki and Furuya the least. But I'll be honest, I ship Miyuki and Sawamura and Koshu and Sawamura pretty equally at this point. And I'm like, Sawamura is going to have to work with Koshu a whole nother year. And we'll talk about that with this counseling session, because this whole counseling session that they have on the grass there where Koshu just comes out and says it. That's the one thing Miyuki cannot do. Miyuki is not good at communicating. And I think Koshu's just starting to realize that. I think Koshu's just starting to realize, wow, you're not a good communicator, are you, Miyuki? And Miyuki hasn't told him, like, yeah, 2 years ago I sucked at it, Koshu doesn't know that going into this. But I think he's figuring it out because Koshu just comes out and says it. He's like, did you just have a lot of pressure yesterday and earlier and you just weren't good because of that? And Sawamura's like, you just scared me to death. You just came out and said it, But I think Sawamura appreciates that. And then that allowed Sawamura to be open with Koshu and be like, yeah, I had all this pressure and I wanted to do good for the team. And I know I messed up. And he's like, there wasn't anything I could do. And it was the best call to take me out. He's like, I just feel bad because I'm the ace. I'm supposed to do better. And then we'll talk about when Miyuki kind of says the exact same thing to Koshu there. And Koshu's like, have you guys talked about this? So, but I feel like Koshu, when he's like, I'll help you in any way I can. I mean, Miyuki would never say that. I mean, Miyuki would maybe mean that, but he would never say that out loud like Koshu does. And Sawamura's just like, oh, hey, wolf boy, you're being more like a husky today than a wolf. And Koshu's like, I don't know what that means. But I love that Okamura, he's so devoted to help make Sawamura shine. He's similar to Miyuki in that regard, except Miyuki is willing to lie and manipulate his pitchers to make them shine. Koshu's not like that. He's very genuine. I don't think Koshu manipulates anybody. He just naturally communicates and wants to be genuine in making them be the best they can be. And he's great at doing that, so it makes him a good catcher. So I'm like, aw, Koshu. And he's just like Sawamura. He's clawed his way to the top so he can have empathy. That's the other thing, too. Miyuki has never had to claw his way to the top for anything. Miyuki, he's not, I don't know if we want to call him a prodigy, but he figured out his niche very early on, and he stuck to it, and he's perfected it, right? Miyuki started out as a catcher from elementary school, and he's just perfected that role for himself. And so he's never really struggled to work his way into the starting position. He kind of had it handed to him when Chris got injured. And so Koshu, though, has had to claw his way up from the bottom, so he knows very much what Sawamura is going through and can empathize and relate in a way that Miyuki can't quite do that, right? But that's such a good scene. It's such a wonderful scene, the two of them. I'm gonna go back and rewatch it when I'm done watching this because it was so good. And then so we cut back to like the end game, and Sawamura's watching the tape, and everybody's kind of giving Sawamura a hard time about it. And Miyuki's like, if it makes him do better, let him do it, And he is a little stern there, but then Sawamura's like, leave me alone. But that's just how Miyuki is with it, right? And so then we cut to the words that Sakaki said to Katioka. He's like, oh, I almost forgot. And I was like, and I wondered for a split second if Sakaki was going to be like, he's like, about that starting pitcher. I wondered for a split second if he was going to pull some douche move and be like, you should probably replace him, or you made a bad call. He's like, he's just like you. And he said that Katioka's first game was really bad. And I was like, oh. And that explains why Katioka was maybe a little bit softer on Sawamura, like taking him out. He was a little hard. He was like, you had too many mistakes. We had to take you out. But the fact that Katioka's first game as an ace was nearly the same, where he was just a bundle of nerves and he had the same flubs, it's like, oh. I thought all this time that Katioka was seeing a lot of himself in Furuya, which is probably still true. But to know from episode 1 that when Sawamura demanded to be the ace and Katioka's like, you little shit, you're just like me. And to know that Katioka's probably been watching Sawamura this whole time and seeing himself in Sawamura and still like making him struggle and go through it all just to make him stronger. Mm-hmm. And this phrase, the team raises the ace and the ace makes the team stronger. It's not the coaches raising the ace, it's the team raising him. And the ace, it's a give and take situation. The team will help make the ace stronger, and the ace will make the team stronger. And we're seeing that happening with Sawamura. Like, he's making Furuya stronger, and he's making the other players have more cohesion. And in return, they're working hard make him stronger as well and to keep him relaxed. And it's like, it's this beautiful give and take, and it's exactly what this series has been building up, and it's what I hope we see develop throughout the summer tournament, is to see the team and Sawamura just grow together in this. It's like, oh my god. But just knowing that, because I'll be honest, whenever they were like, the coach wants to see you, I was like, oh my god, Kataoka is going to yell at Sawamura. It's not going to be good. It's like getting called up to the principal's office, right? Where you're like, oh, I'm going to get yelled at. It's not going to be pretty. Ochai is going to be there and say something, and Ochai didn't say a word. But Kataoka being like, look, Furuya's going to pitch in this next game against Hachia Oji, but I want you ready to go in. And Sawamura's like, oh, okay, yeah, I can do that. I love it. I love it so much. And then we have Koshu asking Miyuki, he's like, hey, what did you do to get Sawamura, like, to calm down? He's like, I need to know, because I'm probably going to be working with him a lot next year. And Miyuki's like, well, didn't work. You know, and that's really the crazy thing, is that we're used to seeing Miyuki so confident and assured, but to see Miyuki feel so disappointed in himself, he's like, I couldn't draw out Sawamura's ability. I'm sure Miyuki was thinking of back in season 1, that game against Inashiro, where Miyuki couldn't get a handle on Sawamura. He couldn't help make him better, and it cost him the game. I'm sure that flashback was hitting Miyuki. He's like, damn it. He's like, why can't I? What am I not doing? And he's like, it's my fault. I wasn't able to draw it out. And it's like, oh, no. And Koshu's just like, oh, maybe you should talk to Sawamura. maybe you should. Because he says, you know, he's like, I'm sure Sawamura realizes that he had to be called out. And in that moment, Koshu, like, remembers their conversation. He's like, yeah, Sawamura is aware because I talked to him and we talked it out and I found out he was aware. He's like, you've not had that conversation with him? Like, I feel like Koshu is in that moment going, oh, you've not talked to Sawamura about this? Like, you probably should, you know? So I'm hoping, because that seems to be Miyuki's problem with Sawamura as their battery. Like, their one holdup is that their communication, like when they're on the same wavelength, it's like twin telepathy powers, right? But when it starts to go off or veer a little bit off course, Miyuki just doesn't know exactly how to reach Sawamura. And he tries to, like, comfort him. He, like, tries to do the thing, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But his communication just isn't quite like Koshu's with Sawamura. And I feel like Koshu needs to talk to Miyuki and be like, hey, I know I'm an underclassman, but, you know, if I could put some pearls of wisdom like how I handle with Sawamura. I feel like hopefully during the summer tournament they talk more, and maybe Koshu can, like, try to get Miyuki to talk more to Sawamura. I don't know. It just feels like there's something there missing, and Koshu has, like, figured out that there's something missing or something's off there. So I don't know what we're going to do with that. I'm curious in the manga to see where that goes. But that conversation between Koshu and Miyuki, it seems like it's going to be something that will have ramifications later, and it will come back later. So that's going to be interesting. But then we get to see the other teams and how they've been doing. Kosei, he's doing great. They beat their team 10-0, and it's like, okay, Kosei's, like, on a roll, doing great. But Yakushi, now we don't know Yakushi's opponent. They could have been pretty weak. But Sanada did not play because he's had that injury. He's not been playing. And so instead we have Tomobe. And they beat that team 13-1. Oh my god. So yeah, Tomobe, I kind of love him because he's weird. I love all the weird players. I love Kosei. I love Tomobe, where he's like, that cloud looks really sexy. It's like, what? He's so serious. Tomobe is so serious and stern and stoic, but then he, like, reads hentai and is, like, viewing the clouds as sexy women. I'm like, who are you? Like, I love the Terajima gives these characters, like, the weirdest combination of personality traits where you're like, how odd, right? But I love that he, like, is fantasizing about the clouds having these sexy feminine shapes, but then he comes out and he, like, does an awesome job pitching. Like he'll be the ace after Sonata leaves. There's no question, I don't think. Because I think that the other players, like Mishiba and stuff, are already doing good in their other positions, and Raichi is not going to be the ace, God no. But I love when Coach Todoroki is like, man, that Tomobe, he's got some flexible wrists. I'm like, gee, I can't imagine how he got those. My mind was in the gutter, clearly, but I'm like, Tomobe, you've done that. But I just love it. Yakushi has them sexy pictures. They got them pretty boy pictures. First Sonata and now Tomobe. I'm like, go for it. Just do it. And in 4 innings, they scored 13-1 to close out the game. In 4 innings. I was floored. I was like, oh my God. Insanity. And so then, of course, it's going to be Yakushi versus Ichidai next. I'm mad that we're already there. We're only like round 3, and we're already going to have either Ichidai or Yakushi go home. No. So, the 4th round, right? It was the 4th round because Raichi pointed at Kosei and was like, 4th round, semifinals. Everybody thinks Inishiro's making it to the finals. Everybody does. The one team that faced Seido, Yugasora, they were like, man, it's going to be Ichidai. Go beat Ichidai. Go beat Inishiro, in the finals. It's like, damn. Okay, everybody thinks Inishiro's got like a one-way ticket to the finals. That's going to be interesting, which, to be honest, yeah, I think Inishiro is going to make it to the finals, and Seido's going to face him in that final rematch. That's just like, it's like everything's been leading up to this point. And here's the thing that would be so great about that is that you have, if you look back at season 1, you had Tanba and Nori and Sawamura and Furuya, and there was all this tension between the pitchers. Sawamura and Furuya hadn't known each other that long. They were rivals, but their rivalry, they were still like sparking and flaming against each other. Like, I'm going to outdo you and I'm going to outdo you. Tanba was not in a great place because he was still coming off of his injury. Nori was still like suffering from some confidence issues from his own, being self-critical of himself. And the 4 of them just weren't in the place that they are now. Like, you have Kaneda, and Kaneda's kind of like in Nori's situation, but Kaneda is really consistent and just like level-headed. So Kaneda's kind of like, he's that like dark horse off in the wings that I'm like, if we really needed him, he's there, and he is reliable. Even though he's not the best pitcher of the 4, he's reliable enough. But then Nori is in a much better place. Nori is our senpai, super grounded, super focused center of calm, and is there to support the pitchers. Then you have Furuya and Sawamura, who are in such a different, better place than they were in season 1. Like, the 2 of them still striving to be the ace, still striving to outdo each other, but with full support of each other. Like, fully supporting each other. Like, I got your back, you got my back. We're going to make it to Koshin. I feel like going into a rematch with Inishiro, it's going to be a whole different game in terms of pitchers, because you've got Furuya and Sawamura backing each other up, and Nori there and Kaneda there backing each other up too. So it's going to be so different. And other than, Mei's got Akamatsu, the demon, but I don't know we haven't seen Akamatsu and Mei's relationship on a team dynamic at all. For a reason. I feel like they're going to wait until we see them in a later game to show us that dynamic. But other than them, and I think maybe the other 3rd-year pitcher at Inishiro, they're not really relay pitching. They're not a relay pitching team. They want the ace to be the one to lead, right? And they only rely on the backup pitchers whenever something's going wrong, or it's a strategy, right? It's not a strategy for them to have a relay for Inishiro, or at least it hasn't been in the past. But yeah. So I love the idea that the team raises its ace member. We have that. And then Seido doing Mochi's laugh, Kurmochi's laugh, where he's like, ha ha ha. I think he's going to like be the shortstop after Kurmochi graduates. I feel like he's going to get in that position, and Haruichi's going to be his new mentor, and it will all come full circle, and it'll be great, right? But yeah, then we have Furuya. I love that. In the bullpen where Furuya and Sawamura are practicing their pitches and Miyuki and Koshu are communicating more. I love that. I feel like that's part of a trend that started. But when Furuya's like, you don't need to pitch for me tomorrow. It's fine. I got this. And Sawamura's like, well, I'm going to be ready. And he's like, no. He's like, you'll pitch because I'll make sure that we get to the next game for you to pitch. And that's the same thing Sawamura was thinking in his head a few days prior before the one game. And so it's great because it shows that Sawamura and Furuya are on the same level. They're in the same mindset, and that's beautiful. And I love it. It's the fate. This second act has made the rivalry. I was honestly questioning it back in season 1, season 2. I was like, how is this rivalry going to work? Is this going to is one of them going to end up just running to the ground? But no, Terajima has made it blossom beautifully. And they're side by side. They've both been the ace. They've both supported each other when the other wasn't the ace. It's like the most beautiful thing. I don't ship Furuya and Sawamura, for the record, I don't. But I think they're like BFFs. They're like its ultimate rival bromance. And I freaking love it. But then, yeah, I am a little bit worried with this game because it's supposed to be super hot outside. And as we've not seen Furuya pitch in scorching temperatures since last summer. Like the fall tournament, it wasn't a big deal because it was nicer weather. Furuya's stamina was better. But this is going to be, it's summer tournament all over again. I'm like, Furuya, how's that stamina working? Have we gotten better with that? Is that gotten better? Is it? Has it? And so we're going to see that in action. I hope that Furuya's okay. We get the captain of Hachiya Oji, which is Masanori. Again, characters with the name Nori in it. They're all pretty great because Masanori, he seems like a Nori equivalent. He's very calm, collected, like supportive. He seems really cool as the captain. But then we get that flashback of him like in the rain screaming in rage with like his hands bloody. And I'm like, oh, okay. You're a secret shark. Cool. Good to know, right? Good to know. And then we have Miyuki. And again, Miyuki just has great chemistry with Furuya where he's like, you've worked this hard. Let's have a good game, right? Let's have a good game. He's like, you're straightforward and stupid like Sawamura too. And it's like, well, he treats them both the same. But he's like, hopefully your emotions are in check. And I think they are. I think Furuya in the next 2 episodes, I think Furuya will pitch fine. I think it will come down to his stamina. I think that is really Furuya's Achilles heel is his stamina. He is, as we've noted this entire series, he can be frail. And it's not his intention to be frail. It just happens, right? So I feel like that's going to be what Furuya suffers from is stamina. But the question is, will Sawamura replace him? Will he manage to pitch through it? Will he make it like a 5-inning game and everybody will do, Seido will score great and we'll be done with it? I don't know. I'm very curious to know where this season ends. And everybody's been really nice and not spoiled me on the ending. All that Kelsey and them said in the Discord about the manga was that start from chapter 169, it'll retread a few things, but then pick up where the anime leaves off. And I'm like, I can do that. So that's what we'll do. But yeah, God, these episodes were really good. These episodes were phenomenal. I loved them. I've cried for I don't know how many times this series, but I think that was the most I've cried, was just, it all came full circle and was like, so, and I'm a wonderfully ugly crier, so. But all the Taurus energy it all just bubbled to the surface and then had to come out somehow, right? And then leave it to an Aries to pick up the pieces. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this reaction and discussion. I can't believe that next week we'll be doing the last 2 episodes of the anime for now, and then picking up where the anime left off. So yeah, I decided long ago that I was going to read the manga for this series. I was like, there's no way I'm just going to stop and wait another 2 years to find out what happens. No. So yeah, we're going to find out together and it'll be a lot of fun. So I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care. And yeah, I'll be back next week with episodes 51, 52, and the rest of volume 19 of Ace of the Diamond Act 2. Bye.